from my niece, actually, who recently passed away, was murdered by her boyfriend. I'm not sure that's who he really was, but I got a glimpse into the underworld, kind of the darkness of human trafficking really personally. People who are drug addicts in the United States get dehumanized. We don't think of them as being humans. And really how a lot of women who are drug addicts make money is through prostitution. They get tricked into or coerced into a relationship maybe with somebody, and eventually they're hooked into a whole network. My way of grieving was to call together three who I think are amazing young women artists, Natalie, Rachael, and Alma, to do a project that would talk to how we take advantage of one another and how we slowly dehumanize one another. And this project is saying just that. We're going to face in the direction of blue, which in this case is human trafficking, and just say, how do we get there?
Yeah, you started out with a very a broad spectrum of things we could have done, and I remember you kind of took it to us and was like, well, what do you want to do? And that made it really hard to explain to people what it was at first. Like, people would ask me, like, so what is this thing you're doing? What, this song you're recording? Human trafficking, addiction, funerals, what? And then just over time, over the course of the last year, it got narrower and narrower.
And with the storyline, how did you guys kind of coordinate that? Because you actually came up with the storyline together, right?
Yeah. Oh, very much so.
Yes.
Jordan was also involved, the director of photography, and so I think we just kind of sat down and came up with a bunch of ideas, and we realized that there were kind of three motifs to the song. And so that's when we kind of pictured these three different scenes.
I met up with Natalie and we talked about a couple storylines that we wanted to use, and that helped me a lot to then form the choreography around the story. As soon as we got the project, which I think was in February, we started brainstorming, and so I didn't start meeting with dancers till July, so I had a month to prep dancers, but I had started choreographing at least in June, if not May.
This is the first musical project that I've worked on, and so figuring out what comes first between the music and the choreography and the visuals is really interesting, because obviously you have to choreograph it ahead of time, but you didn't even have the locations or the story, really. And so then the story was somewhat dictated upon, the choreography and kind of the themes that were coming up, and then also some, different lines of the song.
Really hung on one thing happening, another thing happening, and then changing or adjusting to make the next thing happen. So it really, that piece is really unique, I think, about the project too.
What about the bartender and the priest? How do those two roles fit together? Whose idea was that?
Oh.
I think I just kind of, I didn't really think of myself as being in the video at first, because sometimes it feels like that can distract from a message. Like, if it's supposed to be an interpretive dance, you want to focus on the dancers and not like the star. Like,
but you are a dancer. I mean, I think I was the one who suggested you be in.
Yeah, that would have been really fun. Maybe for the next one.
Yeah.
At first, the priest idea came, so I was like, oh, well, if we have a funeral, that makes sense that as a role for me to be kind of just narrating what's going on. And then probably a few weeks or a month later, I was like, oh, I could be a bartender too, because it's like the parallel.
And it's also a cool way to think about how both roles are like very similar. Like in counseling people or like storytelling and stuff like that.
Really a collaborative, creative process. These gals, I mostly just said yes. They're so talented and have so many great ideas. I think it could be just a movement, that we start a movement facing blue and call other people to the creative process to put their oar in the water and contribute to it. Maybe we create a website or something that people can add to. It'll depend on how far we carry it, but and that's yet to be seen.